Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa is officially booked. That's going to be in Anaheim in February. There's a relevance to it. Does that strike you? Does that catch any of you off guard? Because it did me. And I'll tell you why it did me, is Paulo Costa had already announced that he was fighting in January. I made a piece on this a month ago. And I remember the specific theme of the piece, which is how common it is for the UFC, when you have a main event, in this case at 185 pounds, that you will put a feature match on the same card at the same weight class, which is what they did. They had Duplessis and Strickland on top of the bill. So they put Paulo Costa and Whittaker on the card. We talked about this a month ago. And so when this announcement came out, I'm going, okay, so they moved the date. They moved it to February. And my team's telling me, no, they didn't move to February. This was the announcement. There was no fight. There was never a fight announced for January. I'm going, where am I off here? So I go back and I look it up, and sure enough, it was social media from Paulo Costa, where he did announce that he was fighting in January. And then on the dirt sheets, they speculated it was going to be Whittaker, though that wasn't officially announced. Now, stay with me here because there's a larger point. I've always felt that the rush to Duplessis and Sean Strickland has to do with a chess play. I've never felt when that fight got booked that was the fight to make, that's the fight anybody thought was going to be made, that was the fight that people were pining for. In fact, it was none of those things. It was Sean Strickland very clearly versus Chimaev. And that had began. Not only was the announcement made that Chimaev was the number one contender and would fight next for the belt. Not only was that made, Chimaev and Strickland began in the media. And I remember it even went over to Coach Nissick, who said, hey, wait a minute. I watched these guys spar many times, and I'm hearing the reports of what happened in those sparring. I'm not going to get into great detail, but I will tell you that is not what I saw. That was interesting, though. That was really interesting when Coach Nissick started weighing in on this. We're going down that road, and then we're hearing rumors that Chimaev's hand is hurt, but nobody can really get that confirmed. Before we even tried to get it confirmed or find out what an ETA or a diagnosis for Chimaev would be, before any of that could happen, boom, it's announced. It's going to be Sean. It's going to be Duplessis. It's going to be at the first of the year. Okay. Now, as it sits right now, we can't wait for that fight, right? Everything's going well now that we got the press conference, you got the skirmish during the pay-per-view. That just wasn't the case when it got announced. In fact, it looked pretty obvious. Of course, we're not going to give it to Duplessis. We already offered him a title fight, and he turned it down. Turned it down because he didn't want to fight Adesanya. So we're not going to take the guy that fought and beat Adesanya and then let him have a chance at the same price by fighting that guy. Like, it was just one of these things. I'm just reminding you that this was a narrative at one time. So when that fight got made, I was very confident in speculating for you guys that needs to get done, get behind him, and the winner is going to draw in to Izzy upon his return at 300. And a rematch of Izzy versus Strickland works all day long. Or finally getting the single biggest grudge that we've ever seen, even if we only saw this for 10 days, guys. That 10-day period of Izzy DDP was the hottest heat we've ever had. It was melting airwaves. This is Chael's thought. It's not some novel thought. I'm just sharing with you. It's my thought, and I'm also sharing with you why I came to that conclusion, right? It's a hypothesis. Hypothesis isn't quite a guess. It's a guess based on evidence. So there was my evidence. Now, whether you get Izzy back or not, you then also have the opportunity for Chimaev, who was named number one contender, to feed into one of the two, Strickland, DDP. All right, great. I mean, there you go. There you go, right there. And one thing that did strengthen my resolve was, if it doesn't work out with Izzy, who I don't believe they have done, I believe they're working on that. If Chimaev can't get over here maybe the hand's healing, maybe the rumors that he can't leave the country are true. Those have never been substantiated, but they're rumors that are out there that also haven't been denied. So, in which case, you would just use the January card as your semifinals. Somebody will advance between Sean and Duplessis. Somebody will advance between Whitaker and Paulo Costa. So the fact that Paulo and Whitaker is going to be in February and 300 is in April would disqualify the winner of that from any likely participation at 300, which strengthens yet again what I believe from the beginning, that the middleweights are going to be on great display if Dana and Hunter can get everything to go the way they would like it to. And I think that's very exciting, by the way. I love when we have a match and we know the significance. Like, that's very easy to do for one fight on the card. That's called the title fight. There is a significance. But if you can make that more significant, I mean, it's the miss of nearly every promoter on the planet. Why are we here? Why are we here and why are we doing this? What does it matter? What difference does it make, right? I mean, so the loser, his ego gets a little bit bruised and he loses a little bit of money. Like, I mean, it's one of those things. Like, that's not a great business. That's not a great story. It's something, and it's what most promoters put in front of you. So you have a major opportunity when you have a significance. Why are we here? What is going to happen specifically to the winner of this match? So I love that. I don't know if that'll get revealed to us by January, by the way. I'm just sharing for you that now that I've let out of the bag what the big plan is, I do hope that somebody co-signs it. I do hope that gets backed up. I think those things are helpful. If the plan is Izzy, I would love to have Izzy right there in attendance. So it's interesting, right? Paulo Costa versus Whitaker, Paulo said was going to be in January. Did he just have that wrong? Maybe he did. Maybe it was wishful thinking. Maybe that was just start the negotiations. Hey, I'm ready. Let's get this done. Let's get it done quickly. Maybe. Or was he on that date and it got moved? And if it did get moved, why? I mean, if anybody has a run of bad luck worse than Paulo Costa, I can't think of who it is. And so did it strike again? Did something happen there again? Or was it just never done and he got a little ahead of himself on Twitter? Maybe there's a misunderstanding with the manager. I'm sure there could be reasonable explanations. But the fact that Whitaker and Paulo Costa are officially going to fight in a co-main event in February, a month later than the red corner has already told us, I find interesting. And I find the story to be incomplete. And I would like to know why a fight that was going to be in January is now in February.